Good morning, Monday, December 22nd. Happy belated winter solstice to all my pagan and druid listeners out there. I have my Viking coffee cup. We are at nominal all-time highs, gold and silver as of last night. So right now we're going to go full Ragnar Lothbrok berserker on these charts, so let's get to it. Silver, of course, last night made new nominal all-time highs. It was incredible. I kept crossing out the new highs that we were breaching. Let me see here. 69, 44, 70. Amazing run last night. We called it in yesterday's chart session. We broke out of this bull flag pattern down here. We drew this wedge and it was just up and away right after metals and futures markets opened last night, 5:30 Central Standard Time. Along with it, platinum hit a 17-year high, getting back to 2008 levels. Where's this platinum chart? $2,094.11, just incredible. So now we've already taken out a major resistance point, which was 2085.50. The next target is going to be 2299 on platinum, the all-time high. So let's watch for that. Last week we talked about some of these different platinum plays. PLTM, Granite Shares, PPLT, Aberdeen, PAL, which is the Aberdeen Physical. Oh, that's Palladium, sorry. Let's see here. Anyway, there's a Sprott. Where is the Sprott? There's a Sprott Palladium and Platinum that I also like. But all of the precious metals are just running. Palladium. We are wedging once again. It went crazy last night. And now we are kind of forming, I'm going to have to redo my chart here. We're forming this descending column, which is a bullish pattern consolidation. You can see by these bottom wicks, we have some seller exhaustion. Buyers are sitting on the side. Of course, this is another critical industrial precious metal. And I have my trigger set right here. And this morning, I had 31 alerts go off on TradingView. ETFs, junior miners, senior miners, medium miners, mediocre miners, gold, silver, plat. I mean, it was incredible. So, last night, it was like the Super Bowl. I was chatting with Aaron and we're just watching triggers go off and celebrating. And then I'm scrolling around X and a couple of big metals names are talking about the NFL. I'm like, what are you guys doing? We are making history here and you are talking about sports ball? No shade on my followers that like the sports ball. I used to love going to the Westlake High School football games when they were the best high school team in the country. But we got more important stuff to pay attention to. I really don't ever watch TV anymore. The only TV that I watch is TradingView, which we're on right now. Gold, all-time highs. How can we skip past that? Let's go to this gold chart. So as you can see, we broke out of this wedge, which we talked about last night, and it was just candle after candle after candle. You go to the 4-hour chart here. We're talking 2 God candles brought us up. That's what we call them in the biz. Formed another wedge here. What was this? Middle of the night last night. Now we're kind of wedging again, and we're breaking out once again. New nominal all-time highs, 44.31. Of course, when I say nominal highs, you have to adjust this pricing to what's really going on with fiat-based currency. Some of these metals and these metals plays, it's not just because they're screaming up. This is the result of unlimited money printing, the debasement of the fiat currency system, loss of confidence in what the Federal Reserve and this ridiculously malfeasant Congress, executive, et cetera, has been doing with your tax dollars. Nonstop deficit spending. We're $39-40 trillion in debt, but really, if you take into account all the derivatives and just all the shady accounting practices, really, you get to the bottom of it, it's probably more like $300 or $400 trillion. If there will be a butterfly effect when people actually realize just how insolvent this fiat money system is. And that's why people are piling into the precious metals. That's why we've been recommending them so wholeheartedly here. So yeah, we are breaking out of yet another wedge here. And I mean, now we're going to have to go to Fibonacci levels. We haven't seen these levels before. But again, if we adjust this to CPI, M2 money supply worldwide, industrial demand, inflation, let's just go to gold SPX. We're going to zoom out to the monthly. When in doubt, zoom out. Look left. Let's auto fit this. Guys, look at this chart. We haven't even begun the breakout. Look at this chart. Covered it a little bit yesterday. Look at this. We're just coming off this bottoming pattern. It's kind of a W pattern. We've basically been basing for 10 years. When was the last pseudo spike? May of 20. You might remember a small event went down then. 2011, 2012. The major spikes correlated to the SPX. 2008-9, the monstrous decline in Qs and SPX. I believe Qs, the NASDAQ was off near 80%. So anybody that's skeptical of precious metals and piling in at all-time highs into these markets, we are at all-time highs. And this is a better picture just how much the SPX can decline versus precious metals and how much gold is undervalued versus the SPX. I found this from the Kobisi letter, great resource on X. U.S. equity holdings surpass real estate in U.S. households' net worth in Q2 2025. Never before have Americans owned so many equities. The stock market's run has been historic. U.S. households now own more equities than real estate as a percentage of their net worth. Third such occurrence in the last 65 years. So you're in a once in a near 7-decade occurrence, one of 3 times, okay? So, and then we've talked about the Shiller ratio, the earnings of these major names, the Mag 7 have no correlation with the price of the stocks, completely overvalued. But I have to temper that because the Federal Reserve and the executive are pushing for yet more money printing. We see these Fed overnight repos injecting constant money into the banking system. We are all-time highs, M2 money supply, constant liquidity being injected, which pumps these markets. And I really loved Michael Oliver's take the other day. He tempered the doomer bait, and he was basically like, hey, the SPX, it could go to 7,000 and it could base there for a little while. There may not be a Black Friday, Black Monday event, Depression era event this thing could go up and it could chop for a while just because they've injected so much money to prop everything up. So we're gonna watch this, and we're not gonna make any hyperbolic predictions. But again, long-term wealth preservation, we are recommending the precious metals. Of course, this is not financial advice. Please talk to your licensed financial advisor. Let's just go over a few more of these charts here. Real quick, let's do silver to SPX. I mean, guys, come on, look at this. Similar to gold, looks even better. Okay, trading view cooperate. Shrink that down just a touch. I mean, look at this. Here's where we are today. Boop, boop, way down here. Last spike, 2011 again. And then you remember the good old Hunt brothers. We'll shrink this down. 1980. So this is where we are if you zoom out, and this gives you a really good perspective on just where silver can go. Not a prediction, but kind of an accurate measurement of money printing, debasement of currency into money supply versus precious metals. And now we have an occurrence that we did not have in the 1980 spike. We have international markets. We have JPM moving their gold desk to Singapore to address the Shanghai Gold Exchange. And the overtaking of what has been dominated by New York and London, CME, COMEX, LBMA, and the New York banks, well, guess who's taking over now? It's these developing countries with billions of people that are developing technologies, have young workforces that aren't afraid to work 14, 16, 18-hour work days, photovoltaic cells, EVs. China is blanketing their countryside with solar. We talked how their gigawatt capacity is now double the US. Nuclear, solar. Now everybody's talking about the Samsung solid state batteries. 1 kilogram of silver per Samsung solid state battery. Samsung is now making direct deals with Canadian and Mexican miners to secure their silver stack. They need this product. It's estimated that if only 25% of the EV market switches to a solid state battery, that immediately sucks up the annual production of silver. Then it's baseline, it's zero. We are already in 1.2 billion ounce deficit. So pretty crazy stuff right there. Let's look at some other charts. Go back to the 1 hour. Auto fit. We went over a couple miners. Now, how did this wedge play out? This was Agnico. Incredible strength here. I really like to play the miners. It's my way of harvesting more fiat for physical precious. Some people have 9-to-5 jobs. I sat in an office for 18 years. I'll never do it again. I've developed cash flow businesses to harvest fiat, like the Yeti that drives the combine in the intro videos. I want to harvest as much fiat as possible, pour it into precious metals. But this was last night. We went over this chart. Again, it was a falling wedge. We broke out this morning with the metal market explosion, and it retraced a little bit in the last hour or so, and now we are back on our way up. Incredible strength with Agnico. First Majestic, same deal, one of my larger holdings, not financial advice. Eris, I mean, look at this chart. Incredible. I have to credit Jeremiah Babe JB. Go follow him on the tube. He turned me on. This is Frank Gustra mining company. And I listened to an interview with Frank, and I decided to take a stake in this, and I'm already up about 10%. Thank you, JB. Avino, beautiful chart last night. Again, we had that explosion, and now we're seeing resurgence. Barrick, same deal. A lot of these charts kind of look the same. Bear Creek, recently acquired by Highlander. I divested of my Bear Creek and rolled into Highlander. They're doing some interesting things. They acquired Bear Creek for pennies on the dollar, consolidation. Looks like they're putting together a pretty impressive operation. Pardon me. Just scroll through a couple of these others. Buenaventura, Boab. That's delayed. Cameco, that's more of a proxy play on rare earths and some other stuff. They do it all. Core. I took some profits this morning and kind of wish I hadn't. Here we go, Core. On some of the miners, but Core worked out taking profits. The miners move fast. And my goal is to harvest as much profit as possible. So if I see green, I take green. I don't necessarily close out my position, but I am going to take some profits and hope for a retrace, which we have now. And I might pile back into Core. Copper chart looks great. Again, we had that consolidation from last night. We're forming the same pattern right here. So I'll just take my drawing tool, and we are forming another descending column here. Again, it's bullish. So I have my trigger set here at 558. We get above that, we're going to run. Discovery Silver. Look at that breakout of that descending column. Just beautiful stuff. This is textbook. I don't want you to think that technical analysis is super easy. Let's go to something else. Some of these charts, these are regular equities. Some of these charts looked terrible, like this ascending column here on Rigetti, which is a quantum play. Now, if I inverse this chart, which I often do, so I inverse the chart, this would be a descending column. I would say it's going up here, which of course would mean it's falling, but it did the exact opposite. So, technical analysis and charting probably work 75 to 80% of the time, but it is not a 100% guarantee. So you have to do your due diligence. Let's go to... Yeah, kind of an odd stock market conditions. We have a lot of the equities up. We have even Bitcoin up, and we have metals up at the same time. So a little bit of a Santa Claus rally and everything. Google, we have this ascending channel here. It broke out this morning. Now it's retracing, but to my eyes, if I invert this chart, I think if it breaks kind of around this point, maybe this high, then it's going here, which means it's going lower. So I'm a little bit bearish on Google, but let's see. You never know. I mean, news can come out, so there are a lot of different things that can happen. Let's go back to what we love. That's the precious metals. Just a couple more that I wanted to go over here. I mean, gold chart, all-time highs. Bankers, I believe banker shorts just in New York stand to lose $60 billion off of these shorts. Now, of course, a lot of them have switched long, but you have the European banks. HSBC, Deutsche Bank, you know, these guys, they have not adapted with the times. They're trying to use the same old playbook and short this stuff, but right now they are dealing with hundreds of millions, if not billions, of ounces of demand from India, China, South Korea. Then you have the accumulation by the central banks, weird countries, Iraq, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Russia, and China are shutting off exportation of precious metals. Hecla, one of my favorites. Again, we have this descending column. We broke up big. Retraced, now she's on her way up. So what we want to see is another flagpole form up here, and then another descending wedge form here. Then we'll set our trigger here at the top, 2095, and when it breaks that, there she goes again. Let's see, Newmont. This was kind of a broadening pattern, which is not my favorite. I mainly trade the wedges. Now, there's a million different ways to trade and do technical analysis. I stick with my core competency, but it broke out beautifully because gold exploded. Pan American silver is one of my favorites. Look at that descending wedge and just look at that. We went over the other precious, palladium, platinum, silge. I mean, again, we have that descending wedge. Okay, here's my Sprott fund with the platinum palladium. Now, I don't know if you saw the Eric Sprott interview. It was great. I think he may have had a couple glasses of scotch before the interview because he seemed pretty loose, but just an absolute wealth of information. You got to go watch that one. He talked about Highcroft mining, HYMC. He talked about Discovery Silver, which mines the Cordero in Mexico. He talked about Chesapeake Gold, which I guess is in some major land dispute right now. So you have to pay attention to this stuff if you are trading the miners. He talked about Newfound Gold. I've taken small positions in some of these. Erdene Resources in Mongolia. Supposedly they're getting 4 grams in their open pit when the usual ratio is 1 gram. So he was very bullish on that. It's one thing I just love about the precious metals and the miners in particular. It's like this really cool mix of geopolitics, because you're dealing with the different countries and some of these third world countries and the permitting and the politics in those countries. You have to pay attention to geography and what's going on in terms of BRICS, the wars, everything else. And there's some geology too. He's talking about different ratios, and a lot of these silver mines are they're primarily lead or cobalt or nickel mines, and the silver is a byproduct, which means they can't just go in there hog wild and harvest more silver because they are only getting a small percentage of silver as a result of their mining operations, and that's not their primary goal. So interesting. But yeah, the geology, rocks for jocks, baby. That was supposed to be an easy A in college, and it was a very difficult course. Let's see. Uranium, I am very bullish on. We talked about nuclear power. China's build out 40 nuclear reactors, and the United States talking about nuclear reactors. Now, there are the small modular reactors they're talking about, which you can play with NNE and SMR. I think those are down today, surprisingly. But that's what these big tech companies are going to have to do. I don't know if you saw this major AI build out going on in Indiana from Amazon. This thing is, 11 million square feet or something. It's going to use the same power usage as like 400,000 homes or something like that. It's basically the build out of Skynet. So that's where they're gonna construct the T-1000s to come exterminate the human race. But In the meantime, we can create these really cool AI videos like in the intro. And I know there's a lot of Yeti enthusiasts and Combine enthusiasts out there. And thank you so much for commenting on that. Wheaton, again, descending channel here, and we broke out very nicely. Wanted to make another quick note. A buddy of mine, older gentleman, just brilliant, fantastic guy, multi-talented, but he's been collecting for a while. He's been stacking, and I think he bought silver when it was 12 ounces, decade and a half, 2 decades ago or something in one of the dips. And so he messaged me the other night. Yeah, I bought some. What did he buy? Some silver eagles on eBay or something. And I said, don't do it, dude. And the next morning he called me and admitted he'd had a few cocktails, and the eagles were supposedly coming from Turkey. So I hope it works out for him. My recommendation is stick with SD Bullion, Texas Precious Metals, maybe a local coin shop if you trust them. But be very vigilant. There is counterfeiting out there. They're counterfeiting gold and silver jewelry in China. They're using a zinc core and then they're gold plating it. So, it's not magnetized, and it's got the same weight. But, as I've mentioned before, Aaron, Texas Precious Metals, one of my real good buddies, he's so generous, has me out on the boat all the time. We wake surf together. And so I bought him in celebration several years ago for winter solstice. No, just kidding. For just taking me out on the boat. I bought him a Viking Berserker 1 ounce silver coin, and they antiqued the coin. You could buy it in like the fine shiny silver, or you could buy it antiqued. I got it antiqued, and he saw it and he was like, "Hey man, that's counterfeit. That ain't a real coin." And he was very skeptical, but it's from Galveston Men, or not Galveston Men, it's from Gainesville Men, and I did all the background research. It is pure silver. It's just in that collectible, antiqued style. So really cool coin. It's got like Ragnar Lothbrok on it or something. And then it's got the Viking longship. So that is the only collectible that I have. And I did want to address something yesterday. I didn't want to throw any shade at preppers. The shit could very well hit the fan. And you're talking to a guy with all the stored water, with the generator, the stored food, the lead slingers, first aid, all of that stuff. And then I'm trying to build my tribe, of which Aaron is a big part of that, and other people that are homesteaders, keep bees, have animals, livestock. We are really, really into that. My only caution is listening to certain people that call for the end of the world as clickbait. And, it's like, I was on YouTube, and I'm scrolling through my feed and I'm seeing World War III imminent, nuclear war pending, reset or war. This has me worried. Year of reckoning, shocking ending coming, and all of this it's engagement farming. Definitely, I believe in prepare for the worst, hope for the best. I'm not going to go live in some hole someplace because I'm terrified. There is one life to live. I am going to enjoy it, and I'm going to be optimistic, but I'm also prepared. I probably spent over a month hunting in the woods this year, and constantly working on my marksmanship, my proficiency with my arsenal, and this includes thermal, night vision, all different kinds of scopes, LPVOs, and everything, to long range stuff, handgun work, which is not my favorite, but when you don't like to do it, that's when you have to train it twice as hard. Tons of time in the gym. I'm in the best absolute shape of my life. And that's why I really like Jeremiah Babe's take. he's pretty much like, be in the best physical shape of your life. Take care of yourself health wise, physically. That is going to play a major role, not only in your happiness and longevity, but if something terrible does happen. We have 8 major substations in this country. Under the last administration, who knows how many people streamed in the southern border and even northern border and otherwise. 10 to 20 million people. Who's to say that some of these countries we're in conflict with did not send sapper units? All they would need is a rifle and to go outside of one of these substations and put a couple rounds. And then you have what, 3, 4 states with no power indefinitely? Where do we get the transformers from? That's all from China. We don't even manufacture those anymore. So, you know, prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. But also be aware of the clickbait. It's they've been doing it for decades. People called for the end of the world in 2000, and it didn't happen. And certain people, they've generated tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, scaring the bejesus out of people. They're turning the frogs gay. The frogs are becoming hermaphroditic because of the atrazine and dioxins in pesticides. But when you make some outlandish claim, then you're like the boy who cried wolf, and then people don't believe the salient, legitimate stuff that you're saying. So I really liked the Michael Oliver interview because he, a lot of charting, technical analysis, and kind of tempering and not exaggerating stuff. I'm not going to be collecting any more collectibles other than this because there's some loophole about being a collector and the government's not going to come seize your silver because you're a collector. If the government's seizing silver, you have way bigger things to worry about. I'm not going to be spending all of my meager wealth on junk silver. Because if I ever need to sell it, I'm not even going to get spot, okay? I stack bullion, mainly generic silver rounds. Not to say that I don't have some junk silver. I love these from SD. I mean, this is $10,000 worth of junk silver. I feel like Clint Eastwood and Fistful of Dollars. These things are cool, but I'm not putting the bulk of it into that. So with that, you are now prepared for the next leg up on these precious metals. Have a fantastic Monday, and we will catch up with you soon. Please like, subscribe, and share Full Bore Silver. Thanks.